Welcome to another amazingly average game review. I'm of course Anthony, and the game I'm going to be talking about today is Alpha Protocol. It's published by Sega, but it's developed by Obsidian Entertainment, who more recently did South Park and the Stick of Truth, but is also known for the sequel to Knights of the Old Republic. And the game, Alpha Protocol, is an RPG-style third-person shooter, which you don't see many times, at least around that time, besides Mass Effect. And it's really unique to see them try and go into the whole spy espionage and the whole cloak and dagger setup for it. And what they were basically advertising was the whole option to be, the three JBs, depending on how you wanted to go about it. You could either be like James Borne, Jack Bauer, or Jason Borne. And there's a lot of customization that's provided through those RPG elements, so you can kind of play tailored to your own play style. Now keep in mind, different actions throughout the game are going to play through no matter what, but you can go ahead and tackle different situations as you see fit with the different skill sets you have available between close quarters combat, a complete arsenal of different weaponry, and even just gadgets at your disposal to try and tackle each situation. And the story starts you off as Michael Thorton, a newly recruited member of Alpha Protocol, which is a little secret organization that even the government doesn't know about, other than the fact that they started it, but they don't know much more because of the whole plausible deniability. You can go ahead and do whatever needs to be done, or in some cases, abuse that kind of power, and the government can go ahead and be like, hey, we didn't know anything about it, not our problem. And right off the bat, unfortunately, you are kind of betrayed when you're looking into a terrorist attack with what you think is a stolen Halbech missiles. But of course, just with all good spy stories, there's always a little bit more to the situation than just that. And as I mentioned, the way combat kind of plays out is however you see fit. You have the option between close quarters combat. You can only have 2 different guns at a time, so you really have to kind of think about what situations you're going to be going into. You have the pistol for your more accurate but low rate of fire shots. Even when you get the more upgraded ones, you can only fire so quickly. But you can kind of, if you want to, pull a cowboy and do the old trigger finger, hair trigger, and just fire away. It works somewhat as well, but the only problem is then you're going to be sacrificing stability and accuracy. You also have the Submachine Gun, which you kind of dual wield those. It's kind of when you're going to be facing a whole bunch of enemies and you just want to just run and gun and try to be able to take them all out at once. Of course, then you have the shotgun, and the way the shotgun works is exactly as you would think. It's for more close quarters, massive damage when they're within shorter range. It has somewhat decent range at medium, but it's horrible at long range, of course, which is why you have the assault rifle as an option, which gives you a high rate of fire. You usually want to go ahead and do it in short bursts. Even then, it's not that accurate. It does the most damage when you kind of give it a few moments to aim. So you get that precision fire, and you typically want to go for headshots for a maximum amount of damage with the assault rifle. It kind of works the same for the other weapons. The only time you really get what's known as like criticals from these kind of shots for the headshots is off of the pistol and the assault rifle. It's very hard to pull headshots off with the SMGs and with the actual shotgun, but it is still possible. In combat, not only do different gadgets come into play as far as grenades, incendiary grenades, or even just EMP grenades that can knock people out, but you also have different abilities. For instance, you have Fury, so if you're one of those people that like to do close quarter combat, you become somewhat more resistant, almost like a berserker mode. You take slightly less damage, but you output a lot more damage whenever you do close quarters combat. Or you have another ability, which is a precision shot with the pistol, to where you kind of put time nearly to a standstill and allows you for anywhere between, depending on how far along you have it upgraded, 2 to 5 shots, which makes it very easy to set up headshots on multiple opponents in the matter of a second. So it really changes the dynamic of combat in your favor. Like most third-person shooters, there is a cover system. It tends to be a little bit on the buggy side. Sometimes you'll go ahead and get a target reticle to where you think you're going to be able to pull off a headshot, and then for some reason as you're just clicking away at the fire button, it's just not working out because you have to be literally right on the corner. But for some reason, even if you're off just a slight inch, you still seem like you're going to be able to get that critical shot off, but you can't unless you're all the way there. But at least from different cover positions, you can go ahead and kind of survey the area in case you're trying to go for more of the stealth element and you're trying to get around, because there are the stealth takedowns that are available, either through non-violent or violent means. But at the same time, you have the option to, even during massive gunfights, go ahead and use blind fire somewhat effectively. Sadly enough, in my own playthrough, I was a little bit more accurate with blind fire sometimes than I was with actual aimed fire. There's also the inclusion of being able to hack safes, door pads, computers, automated turrets that can either give you access to new areas or give you money, intel, and other things along those lines. So it can even be used to bypass a fight altogether if you're going the stealth route. The way you handle certain situations, as well as the different feats that you accomplish throughout the game, also unlocks different perks that improve your character, whether it be combat-oriented, gadget-oriented, dialogue-oriented in the way you interact with different characters, or even just something that rewards you with advancement points. Which advancement points is something that you gain once you complete a different stages. You have the option to go ahead and, once you've leveled, use those points to improve your character in the different skills that you have available, whether they be pistols, SMGs, shotguns, assault rifle. You have Sabotage, which affects the way you use your different gadgets that are more like traps or meant to damage your opponents. Technical Aptitude, which you use for hacking different computers, which is used to gain information, shut off cameras, even automated turrets. You also have Stealth and Martial Arts. And based on those different combinations, that's kind of how you go throughout each mission. And in regards to the dialogue system, they've added dialogue system, once again, not trying to really compare it, but similar to Mass Effect. You can tell that's where they got the inspiration. But what I like about it is there's a sense of urgency to every time you make a dialogue choice. You really need to consider how you're going to play out different situations as far as dialogue is concerned before you kind of just hit a button. There's going to be repercussions to your actions. It's not like other games that have used dialogue systems to where it's just like, okay, well, you can go ahead and just say it and dialogue, your little tree continues and so on. You have only a few moments to choose between. It's typically 3 different styles. You have the consummate professional approach to something. You can go for a much more aggressive approach, or you can kind of try and be smooth, typically like James Bond, and go for the whole suave option. And between those 3, you also want to pay attention to who you're going to be speaking to, because each person reacts differently to those 3 different kind of dialogue options that you have. That's also another thing that comes into play. The dialogue can affect who becomes friends and who can become enemies, which you can either use in your favor for people that are your handlers. They can go ahead and provide better bonuses when you go ahead and try and accomplish certain missions, but also at the same time for people who are outside of Alpha Protocol, some of the people that you meet that you're not sure are friend or foe, that's how you can go ahead and get to know them better. And sometimes that even unlocks dossier information. And the way dossiers interact with the not only story, but also the combat and gameplay of the game, is the more you know about somebody, you can go ahead and use that not only in dialogue to go ahead and get a entirely different, sometimes even secret, little branch of dialogue to go through, but it can also affect how a situation plays out. For instance, if you do your research, once you are on a boat meant to take out a certain target, you'll run into one of the characters from one of the other factions, known as Sis. If you spare her and you go ahead and do your research on her kind of bodyguard, she's bodyguarding another character known as Albatross, who leads the G22, you find out more about her, which it unlocks a different setup for dialogue, and it leads to a different situation than typically if you, 1, would have executed her, or 2, would have known nothing about her, which can also either, in some respects, piss off Albatross, or further gain his trust. And that's kind of how it plays out. It pays to go ahead and try different forms of dialogue with different individuals, also making sure that you collect dossier information, like I mentioned before, because the dossier information can also play into combat. You can go ahead and use it as far as finding weaknesses to where you can do a little bit more damage, or know easier ways or easier triggers to go ahead and take down your opponent. And the way you can go ahead and get dossier information is either through exploration, which is also how you can get different weapon modifications to go ahead and, well, better your weaponry, but also how you can go ahead and gain more money, and that's how you get the intel as well, The other place you can go ahead and get it is you kind of have, when in between missions, you can go to your safe house to where you can go ahead and modify your arsenal as far as different armor you have to choose from. You also have different armor mods to better your armor as far as either concealing your character a little bit better through different mods, providing better protection, allowing you to have a longer amount of time to hack different computers or even be able to pick locks a little bit longer and so on. You also have the option of choosing different weaponry to which you can buy better weapons, of course, and even from there with the weapon modifications. But they're also through that little black market that you can go through. That's how you can buy intel as well as other gadgets. But another interesting thing you can do during dialogue is instead of just even bothering with the whole tree, you can go ahead and choose to flat out attack, or even just go ahead and if you're having a conversation, you've already defeated the person, kill them. So if you try to interrupt somebody through an attack, of course you get the upper hand. They're going to be not necessarily stunned, but you'll have a few more moments to get a few pot shots off first before they can really react. Or in certain situations, it's you might feel, at least as far as your character story, the way you're playing it is concerned, would want to just kill that person off because you really don't want to hear what they have to say, or you feel that they might not deserve to live because they're bad people. And that's kind of where you have to try and consider who pick and choose who your friends are, because based on how you do that, it kind of changes the story. The overall story is going to remain the same as far as your mission of finding out who betrayed you and why you're stuck with Alpha Protocol, but everybody's trying to hunt you down even though you were not the person who was behind the terrorist attack, or you never really went rogue despite the fact that that's what everybody seems to think. That remains the same, but different interactions, different people you run into, even different scenes happen based on the actions you choose, not only through the game but also through those dialogue options. So there's a lot of replayability in that respect. It's not going to be the same each time unless you always choose the same dialogue options and the same decisions throughout the game. And that's why it's also important not only for exploration, for getting intel, weapons, ammo, and so on, but on top of that, when you go ahead and take care of certain side quests, or side missions you'll find throughout each mission that you're playing, it also has either a positive or a negative impact on the game, sometimes making it easier. For instance, in the very first level, you can go ahead and take out some of elite Al-Samad guards, and if you take them out in that mission, there's a lot less when you get to the final mission, kind of making it a little easier for you to go ahead and beat the boss of that area. And it's just little interesting things they do like that you'll see throughout Alpha Protocol. So again, it pays to explore, it pays to go ahead and do the side content and the side missions that you'll find and continue from there. The cast of characters is somewhat interesting. I mean, they're your typical run-of-the-mill characters you would see in most spy flicks or even just other RPGs in the similar spy genre. And although they may not exactly be completely memorable, they were still fairly well written. Again, they were enjoyable. They led to some very funny scenes depending on how you interact with some of these characters. And it feels like it was at least an honest attempt at trying to make this entertaining. And for quite a few people, maybe not everybody, considering it didn't get favorable reviews in the past and probably still doesn't to this day, it was still a very enjoyable game. Which, like most RPGs, with some of these female characters, you have the opportunity of pursuing different romantic interests. But the interesting thing with this one is you have the opportunity of romancing everybody or nobody at all if you want to, which I believe was also either an achievement or a trophy for anybody who likes to chase after that. And it's generally the way they have it, just a little quick dialogue, then it fades to black, and then that's it. So anybody who's looking forward to that, sorry. And one of the issues that people tend to have, and you've seen that in previous reviews, even way back when, around the time of its release, is despite it being released in 2010, a lot of people tend to think that it's dated in terms of graphics. Almost, some people have even said PlayStation 2 graphics. But it hasn't really bothered me that much, and it really doesn't look like it's truly that dated. The only really issues that I've had in regards to Alpha Protocol is just some of the little glitches and bugs in regards to the cover system. Sometimes when you try to open up certain things, they won't open up properly. Or there's even been one really weird glitch to where I tried to jump on the gun and the entire screen just kind of faded and blurred as if something is much further away that you would normally notice with other weaponry if you're trying to aim at a target that's much further away, despite the fact that it's almost right in front of me. And it really doesn't happen too often, but it is somewhat of annoyance, and it's probably something that could have been fixed in a patch. Alpha Protocol was a great attempt by Obsidian Entertainment to try and create a unique IP involving spy espionage, as well as making something that's a little mesh of third-person shooter and RPG. And I thought it was a great attempt at doing so. There were some slight flaws, but no game is honestly perfect. And it's a shame that it wasn't so well received because it never gave them the chance to improve on some of the issues that people have mentioned, or even just some of the things that I've seen as well, to give it another shot with like an Alpha Protocol 2 to see them truly excel and take this somewhere different. Because like I said, the dialogue options were great as far as different people handling different situations, as well as opening up entirely different dialogue trees or different little scenes that you get in situations throughout the game. The combat was pretty solid, minus a little bit of issues with the cover system. But overall, like I said, it was a great game. I know I enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to anybody who'd be interested. And the way I'm kind of doing the review system, I mentioned it before, but it's a little bit different. I decided to go with the score system, even though I'm not a big fan of it. But in order for able to get any kind of review copies from any developers, they said to be taken seriously, that's kind of the way you got to do it. So the way I have it set up, just for easy understanding, is a 10 through a 7.5, in my opinion, would be considered something you should buy. Anywhere between 7 to a 5 is a rental, and anything 4.5 or below is something you should probably pass. Keep in mind this is strictly just my opinion. There's some games out there that I might rate a 6 that you might find a must-buy, and by all means do so. This review is only meant to take into consideration some things that are mentioned as to whether or not you think you'd want to give it the time of day, even at all, or if you just want to go ahead and it's a must-have that you have to buy. Alpha Protocol, I give an 8 out of 10. As I mentioned before, I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was a great attempt by Obsidian Entertainment. I've played it God knows how many different times because the beauty of it is that replayability and the fact that you can do it different ways. And the whole thing of either being Jack Bauer, Jason Borne, and James Bond, it sticks true to what they've mentioned. And hope this review was helpful to you. And until next time.
Those tranquilizers wore off fast.
Are hallucinations a side effect, or...
What?
Ugh, never mind.